guys, welcome back to Be Fit Eat Vegan. I'm Linda, and today the recipe I'm going to do is going to be a vegan moussaka. Now, it is, for those of you that don't know, it is a Greek dish, and it is layered sort of like lasagna, but there is no pasta in it. So it's layered with eggplant and usually a ground lamb mixture. I'm veganizing that, and then it's topped off with bechamel sauce, which is a white sauce. So I'm veganizing all of those layers and putting it together in a delicious dish. So for the first and third layers, you need some eggplants. These are quite small eggplants. You can see I would normally say you need 2 large, but I bought 3 because they're quite small, and we're going to slice them up. Also for that layer, I will be brushing them with olive oil and sprinkling them with salt and pepper. For my meat layer, I'm going to be using TVP, and I'm going to use about 1 cup of it dry. And I'm also going to mix in there some lentils, about 1/2 cup of lentils dry. And for the top layer, our white sauce, our bechamel sauce, I'm going to be using about 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, about 1/4 cup of vegan butter, about 1/2 cup of flour. I'm using whole wheat flour here. You can use white flour. I'm going to need about 3 to 4 cups of almond milk. You want this sauce to be quite thick, so not too much. I'll get to that later. And then just some salt and pepper to taste. So I'm going to start by, I have sliced my eggplant and put them on a baking tray. I've brushed them with a little bit of olive oil and salt and peppered them, putting them into an oven of about 250 to 300 for about 25 minutes or so, flipping them over about halfway. This is just to dry them out a little bit because eggplant tends to be full of a lot of water and gets mushy. So we want to just dry them out a little bit before we create those layers. So while the eggplant is in the oven roasting, drying out, I have put my dry TVP and lentils together in a bowl, and I'm just going to top it with hot water. Now I have boiled this kettle, but it has been cooling for a little while, so it's hot but not boiling. And you just want to cover those. I'm going to stir it just to make sure that it's all in there, and then we just let them soak for a little while, letting everything tenderize. And while that's doing that, we'll head over to our stove. So start by heating a couple of teaspoons of oil over a medium heat, and we will saute our onions. Once they start becoming translucent, adding in our garlic. And after about a minute more, we're going to add in the rest of our vegetables. So our celery and our pepper. And our seasoning. So we've got our oregano, cinnamon, cloves, and rosemary all in together. And just stir that around till it starts to become really fragrant. Now while this is simmering a little bit, it smells good already. I'm going to drain off the excess fluid in my TVP and my lentils. I have drained off the excess fluid. You can you can see that there is still some fluid in there. That's okay, because we are going to cook this down, and we do want those lentils to get a little bit more tender. But we're just going to add those all in now. We want to stir up all of the ingredients. TVP really does not have any flavor until you mix it with your ingredients, and that's what flavor it takes on. So you really want to get this all mixed in there and bring it back up to a simmer. Now that it's at a simmer, I have added my tomato paste, and I'm just going to stir it all in, and we are going to simmer this until it is no longer real fluidy like that. We want it to become more of a nice thick mince and all of those flavors being absorbed. So I have brought it back to a simmer here, and at this point you want to taste it. Just make sure that you have all the flavor combinations that you want in there. You should be able to taste the cinnamon a little bit, but you don't want it overpowering. I've also added salt and pepper to taste, and when I tasted it, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I added in a splash of dry red wine. I also added in a little bit more cinnamon, just to get all of those flavor combinations. So now I'm going to simmer it down until it is, I'm sure you can hear my dog having a drink in the background. Anyways, I'm going to simmer it down now and cook off as much of that liquid as we can. We want it quite thick, so it's a good solid layer. And I've also now taken my eggplant out of the oven. I only have 2 here. I didn't do all 3, and I think those 2 might be enough. I'm going to be using my 9x13 glass dish, and I need 2 layers of those. So if I find that they're not enough, then I'll do some more, but I think that's going to be enough for now. So now let's get to our bechamel sauce. So I'm starting by melting my butter, my vegan butter and my oil together, and they have melted. And then I'm going to add in my half a cup of flour, and we're going to stir that around until it's all absorbed. And we are going to cook that for a little bit. And I'm going to add my salt and pepper in here. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and stir that up. So you want it to come to a little bit of a simmer here. No higher than medium. You want it medium to medium low heat. And then we want to very slowly add the milk, constantly stirring. And then we'll be stirring constantly. You don't want to stop because you may end up with lumps in your white sauce. So I'm going to start with, I've got 2 cups of the milk in there, and I'm going to stir it constantly, bringing it back up to a simmer. And at that point, I'll decide if I want to add more milk into it or if that's enough. We want it thick, but we don't want it sliceable. So this is a few minutes later, and it's getting quite thick, you can see, and it's still getting thicker. So I think I'm going to add in another half a cup of milk. I don't want to put in too much, so I'm going to start with just half a cup. And again, we want to stir, sorry, my stove is wobbly. We want to stir that in slowly and keep stirring, and then keep going, bringing it back up to a simmer again, and it will continue to thicken. If you're wondering what the specs are in my sauce, I have used whole grain flour. I always use whole wheat or whole grain. I try and do everything as healthy as possible. So it adds, the specs into the sauce, which is fine with us. If you want creamier looking sauce, you'll use your white flour. But I honestly don't even have any white flour in the house. So you can see it's still quite thick and thickening. And I want to keep stirring this until it comes back up to a simmer again, and then we're going to turn it off and set it aside, and we'll build our layers. Now we have all the different layers ready and set aside, ready to go. So at this point I will preheat my oven to about 400 degrees, and we'll start our layers. And we're going to start with our eggplant. So we just want to take it and layer it all along the bottom of our 9x13 glass dish. Like I said, if I don't have enough, I'm going to stick another one in the oven before I get to the top layer. And it looks like I'm going to have to, because this one isn't enough to do the bottom. The next layer is our meat mixture, or in our case, TVP and lentils, and we want to put the whole thing in there. And then we just want to smooth it around, make sure it's even over that layer of eggplant. Smells really good, guys. And now we'll top it off with the other layer of eggplant. And these have cooled, so they're easy to handle. And the final layer is the bechamel sauce. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on the top, just for looks. And then into the oven at a preheated 400 for about 30 minutes. Half an hour later, out of the oven, nice and brown and bubbly.